Welcome. In this session, we will be talking about the 7th Pay Commission. Now, there have been 7 pay commissions till now, of which 7th Pay Commission is supposed to be a kind of maximum burden on the GDP of India. Now, the chairperson of this commission is Mr. Ashok Kumar Mathur. You have 2 members in secretary level position that is there for the 7th Pay Commission. What we will be trying to understand in this class is the basic idea why 7th Pay Commission was released and the need for 7th Pay Commission. Now, if we look through the previous commissions, we have this table which explains the various 7 commissions when they were established, then they were implemented, the major chairpersons. And if we look at the financial impact, there has been a steep rise of the financial impact in the 7th Pay Commission that we can see here is around 1.02 lakhs, as in contrast to just 20,000 crores, you have 1.02 lakh crores, which is in the 7th Pay Commission. Now, there are few basic highlights of each commission that we are discussing here. The 4th commission is important because you have the rank pay system that was introduced here. By 6th Pay Commission, there was nearly 5.5 million people that were benefited, and in the 7th Pay Commission, you have an approximate hike of 23.55% in terms of pays and allowances. And the 3rd Pay Commission is important because 3 concepts were introduced, that was inclusiveness, comprehensibility and adequacy. So these are the highlights of the various commissions and the basic chairpersons of each of the commission. I expect one question from 7th Pay Commission this time. Now, why there was a need for 7th Pay Commission? There have been a lot of public sector undertakings that are now closing or being handed over to private sectors. As a result, there has been decline in the posts that lie in the PSUs, and this decline is accounting for nearly 5 lakh, and you have 31,389. So this is the amount you have, or these are the positions that you have that are supposed to decrease because of the dilutions of or disinvestment of PSUs, I can say. Now, most of the government machinery is functioning at a manpower which is less by 27% of the original requirement. However, since 1995 to 2010, if I talk about, there has been an increase in the requirement of manpower by 16%, but they are functioning at a decline of, I could say, or at a lower workforce of less than 27% of what is required. So, based on these, there was suggestion that there should be increment in the pay scales, and this increment would attract more people towards government jobs. Now, when we talk about pay commission, there are 3 things mainly that a pay commission has to bear. First is the pay scales or the salaries, I could say. The next is the allowances, and finally is the pension. All these 3 together create a burden on the GDP. So, based on the 7th Pay Commission, I can say 16% would go for the pays or the salaries of an employee, 63% would go towards allowances, and around 24% would go towards pension. So, this would be a kind of broad picture that we could see for the 7th Pay Commission, and we can see maximum that has been is towards allowances even in the 7th Pay Commission. Now, who are the people affected by the Pay Commission changes? There has been, based on the recommendations that were proposed for the 7th Pay Commission, it was proposed that there should be 14.27% hike in the basic pay level, which is considered to be lowest among the last 70 years. In the 6th Pay Commission, there was 20% hike, which doubled from 2008 when it was implemented. And in the 7th Pay Commission, you have around these many people who would be affected, that is 33 lakh central employees, 14 lakh armed personals and 52 lakh pensioners. Now when we talk about the highlights of the pay commission, the first and the foremost is the fitment factor. To understand the fitment factor, we would be understanding two basic things. One is the Dr. Akryd's formula and the ILC norms, based on which you have the fitment factor that was released, and this fitment factor has been laid to 2.57 across all pay grades. That means there would be an increment by a factor of 2.57 across all pay grades. In simple terms, if we try to understand, the yearly increment rate has been as same as it was before, that is at 3%. The house building allowances has been increased to 25 lakh from 7.5 lakh, and finally gratuity has been increased to 25 lakhs from 10 lakhs. Now to understand gratuity, I can say it is the end of service benefit. So once the person is in job, it starts after a tenure of 5 years, and it includes the total amount, the total collectible that a person has put towards his service. It is based on three things. First is the basic salary, then the dearness allowance, and the number of years you are in service. Based on these three, the gratuity is calculated. Now to understand the fitment factor, we will first talk about the Akryd's formula, and then we will talk about the ILC norms. Now Dr. Wallace Akroyd was the first director of Department of Nutrition at Food and Agricultural Organization UNO. In 35, he was appointed as a director of India's Nutritional Research Center, which is based at Kannur in Kerala. So this is again important, and he laid the foundation for individual food requirement for an adult, which he established was 2700 calories. Based on this, he tried to explain that there is a need to compute the pay scales at minimum level, and that should be based on the need of an individual. So he included various factors along with food or nutrition as one of the primary factors. So this was the first factor that was introduced. Based on this, based on Professor Akryd's suggestion, the ILC norms were incorporated, and based on these ILC norms, there has been a fitment factor that has been declared for the 7th pay commission. The ILC norms for 1957 explain that when we are talking about the standard working class family, we consider it to be 3 consumption units for one earner, which includes 2 adults and 2 children. The minimum food requirement is taken as 2700 calories as explained by Professor Akryd. Then the clothing requirement is another parameter which is considered as consumption of 18 yards per annum per person. So a family of 4 would have 72 yards per annum per family. The housing, the rent corresponds to the minimum area that is provided by government industrial housing schemes, and then on top of that, around 20% expenditure is considered for fuel, lighting and other expenses, the miscellaneous expenses. Based on all these, they found out the minimum requirement or the minimum expenditure that a person has to bear per month, and based on these, they laid out that the minimum wages per month should be increased from 7,000 to 18,000. So as per the 7th pay commission, the minimum wages or the minimum pay scale, I could say, has been set up at 18,000 per month up from the previous, that was 7,000. The maximum pay scale has been fixed at 2.25 lakhs per annum for the apex scale and 2.5 lakhs per annum for the cabinet secretary post. Now these are the major changes, and all these changes would lie in effect from 1st January 2016. So when it was released in June, all the 6 months backlog would be filled up as arrear. That is, arrear means you are trying to pay for the already 6 months for which you have already paid the salaries. So you would be adjusting the amount, and this adjustment would be done by this year end, that is 2016 end itself. Now what do we expect if we increase the pay rise or we increase the pay scale of a government employee? What the government plans is, Since there is more income in the hand of an individual, there would be more disposable income. More disposable income would lead to more consumer spending and an increased demand. This would lead to growth of economy. That is one perspective. Since there is more money in circulation and there is consumer spending that is increasing, there would be increase in the economic growth. However, the real model does not explain that, because more consumer spending would lead to increased demand, and since under economics we talk about equilibrium of the demand and supply curve, if this equilibrium is disrupted, what would happen? The supply would go down than the demand. If the supply is less than the demand, what would happen would be the ultimate consequence would be rise in the price, and that rise in the price would lead to inflation. Inflation, as we know, is always not good, because if there is inflation, the person who has a higher salary would do good, but a person who is still surviving on a minimum wages will not be able to cope up with the inflating prices. So there is one thing that the government would need to check out very seriously with the 7th Pay Commission is the price rise in the market prices, or I could say the inflationary prices that have come up. Now, when we talk about government's burden, in contrast to 6th Pay Commission and 7th Pay Commission, there is an additional of USD 15 billion or INR 1.02 lakh crore burden per year on Indian economy, and that extra money, that is in terms of pays, allowances and GDP will pays, allowances and pension would contribute to a increase in 0.7% of the gross domestic product of India. So that is the amount of burden that would increase for the Indian government. Now, what are the key points that we need to know for the 7th Pay Commission? There has been rise in the military scale. The military pay has increased from 1000, for those who are at the scale of 1000, it is increased to basic with 3600. For 2000, it has increased to 5200. For 4200, it is increased to 10800. And for 6000, it has increased to 15500. So that is the changes in the military slab. Now, if we talk about the fixation of pay on promotion has been applied, there has been a system of a special pay system that is reintroduced this time. Modified Assurance Career Progression Scheme is being launched that would include 3 basic sets, that is at a period of 10 year, 20 year and 30 year. So you would have a pay increment exactly after 10, 20 and 30 years by the Modified Assured Career Progression Scheme. It would abolish the existing 52 allowances that exist, and there is a new allowance which would be introduced, that is the risk and the hardship allowance. It would have a 9-cell matrix, and on this 9-cell matrix you would have the RH maximum, that is the risk and hardship allowance maximum, and that maximum is devoted to people working in Siachen Glacier region. So that is a new factor that has been introduced this time with a special reference to military and defense personals. Now, maternity leave and paternity leave were proposed to be increased in the 7th Pay Commission, but they remain at status quo. There has been no change. There are few allowances that have been abolished, and this is important. I believe there should be a definite question from these key points. So you have the hutting allowance, which was given to the railway employees. In the case of plague, they were asked to vacate their homes and to shift near the railway lines. This allowance has been abolished this time, considering the fact that this problem is no more in existence. Then rent-free accommodation was another allowance that has been deleted this time. There was another allowance which was known as furlough leave, which was a 60 days special leave for defense personnel, that has again been abolished this time. To provide incentive to postings in remote areas like Northeast India and Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep, you have the family HRA allowance that has been introduced. This was already existing for the Northeast regions. This has been extended to Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep this time. Now there is another key important point that we will understand here. The HRA should be 14, 16 and 8% of the basic pay for class X, Y and Z cities. Now these class X, Y and Z cities were classified under the 6th pay commission. We will see further how it works. The rate of HRA is revised to 27, 18 and 9 when the DA is more than 50%, and if it crosses 100% it is 30, 20 and 10. So these are the revised rates for HRA. There is provision for compensatory city allowance, transport allowance, overtime and night duty allowance, and hierarchical promotion would be applied under the modified assurance career progression scheme. Now city classification up till the 6th pay commission was divided into two sets, that was the compensatory city allowance and the house rent allowance. Under compensatory city allowance, the categories were A1 city, A city, B1 city and B2 city, and under HRA they were A1, A, B1, B2 and C cities. However, under 6th pay commission, A1 city were converted into X cities, or we also call them tier 1 cities. A, B1 and B2 were converted to Y cities, which were tier 2 cities, and finally you have C and unclassified, which were converted into Z cities, which are tier 3 cities. Under 2011 census, Pune and Ahmedabad have been upgraded into X cities or tier 1 cities, and now there are total 8 cities which fall under tier 1 cities, tier 1 or X cities, that is Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai and Pune. So this is the new city classification, and based on this you have revisions in the HRA that has been allowed. Now understanding the pros and cons of the 7th pay commission, let's talk about the advantages first. So when we talk about the pros, you have firstly, the most importantly is you are trying to bring the salary at par. So salary at par with private employees, increase the motivation, drain better talents, and this was an idea that has been derived from the Singapore model. Under Singapore model, what happens is the people in government job are given much higher pay as compared to private job, and in a sense they are trying to drive talent for government jobs. So the same is happening with the 7th pay commission. They are trying to drain more talent. It would increase the collection of direct and indirect taxes. So it would directly or indirectly affect the taxation system of India. It would increase the capital formation, the flow of money in circulation, increase the liquidity of money, and it would definitely boost economic growth. So these are some of the benefits that we talk about for 7th pay commission. When we talk about the disadvantages, the first disadvantage is the government has to bear the burden, and that burden is substantial this time, with around accounting for 0.7% of the GDP this time. Then this can lead to negative effect on the fiscal revenue or the fiscal burden. So you can have a negative fiscal burden this time. So there would be a higher fiscal burden as compared to the previous years. Again, this deficit would lead to risk parameters for Indian economy. Since there is more money in the hand of individual, as we explained before, there would be more spending, more demand, and the supply won't be able to meet the demand, and there would be price rise or inflation. So situation of inflation is predicted, which should be highly checked by the government. And finally, this would again bring more pressure on the private sector companies who would try to work around with the same pay scales as the government does. So with this we cover the basic idea for the 7th pay commission. We will be covering more lectures related to general studies in our further sessions. You can subscribe to our channel for more sessions. Have a good day.